Previously on Handbook for Mortals. The cards tell me that your magical dick has made an obsessive stalker out of your assistant. Then, your brazen sluttery has pushed her over the edge, and now she plans to shoot you for real during your next big finale. She has been watching you sleep, and her malicious vibes have seeped into your dreams, thereby producing the nightmares. The only path to your survival. Lure the cops to the show right before you go on, wear a bulletproof vest, and let her shoot you. Oh, wow! I knew how she felt, but not to this degree. She wasn't even that great in bed. I am freaking out! It was the noise of the last of tea being sipped out of Mac's mason jar and straw, and then the ice hitting the bottom of his empty glass that temporarily stops the story. Once again, we open with a banger. I'm convinced Sarum had never read her writing aloud, cause what in the HE double hockey sticks is this? I had to recite this work of art multiple times before actually saying it for real, to not only wrap my brain around it, but also untwist my tongue. There's this cracked out rhythm to depict the most unnecessarily dragged out minute detail, and not a single comma in sight. So it's a true one sentence, one breath challenge. Amazing. Dela's supposed storytelling prowess has Mac mesmerized? What? Did we experience the same backstory? Does this also mean the last chapter was narrated by Dela? Or Sherry replicating Dela's narrative voice? Even then, the basic prose still leaves much to be desired. So, with no due respect, I call shenanigans. As Mac ruminates on chapter 17, he starts to see Charles in a different light. He must have started with nothing and had no one, as carnies typically start out with nothing and have no one. Life for Dela and Charles was far from glamorous, since they came from nothing and had no one. Mac assumed Charles to be a man who always had everything and got anything he wanted. Again, did we experience the same story? Despite the setting, Charles was still a major attraction who can nail every babe he set his eyes on. So yeah, I've yet to see evidence of the contrary. He succeeded then and has done even better with age. Dela excuses herself to refill Mac's tea, so Charles takes the storytelling baton. He thought Dela pulled a sick-ass parlor trick the first time he saw her work. As a magician who seemingly pulls off the impossible, he knows how easy it is to fool people. To give some occasional credit, I like the contrast Charles creates. I had always believed we were both tricksters, deceiving people in our own ways. The difference, I always thought, was people came to me to be fooled. They wanted me to deceive them, but they came to her for the truth. Despite freaking out over Dela's accurate reading, Charles never saw any proverbial sleeves to hide her cards. But he wanted to get a personal gauge on Betty before committing to Dela's solution. Unfortunately, this expert people reader fails his rhetoric, suggestion, and empathy checks, so he essentially follows Pascal's wager in the end. Sherry asserts that the last paragraph was an example of Charles's masterful storytelling abilities. Hey, calm down. I confess to liking that one line, no need to get cocky over it. But it's all about the delivery, and that's where Charles shines. Sherry can't help but glaze on about how her dad spins his verbiage with well-timed and voluminous inflections that roll off his tongue. The way his eyes light up and his lips would curl at the perfect moment to play for his one-man audience. Okay? That is a highly specific observation, Sherry. I wouldn't side-eye this under normal circumstances, but we know that isn't the case here. Dela didn't get the same descriptive treatment beyond her gorgeously basic physical appearance and a brief Steven Spielberg level of storytelling prowess. Her surface-level descriptions are told from a distance. This is different. It's close up. Why does she point out his voluminous inflections, eye twinkles, and lip curls? Here's another quarter for the daddy issues jar, I suppose. Charles also has Mac at the edge of his seat. Once confused and disinterested, now eager for more. Forget about the woman he loves fighting for her life in the other room. He is hooked more than a housewife watching, Days of Our Lives. Okay, I like this silly little comparison, but hopefully that's where the media reference ends though. It does doesn't. So, on that fateful Sunday night, Charles managed to conceal the bulletproof vest from the audience and Betty. How? Who knows? You. Even though he followed through with the plan, doubt still plagued him until Betty squeezed the trigger. The shock and surprise was real that night. Even Mac can't believe Betty did it. Now, y'all may be asking, how does this story end? Well, Betty went to a mental hospital where, I believe, she received help, and I lived to see another day. Wonderful. 5 stars. Pure cinema. Also, he believes she got help? As opposed to what? Wait, no, please don't answer that. For being such a masterful storyteller, his endings sure are tacked on. Mac turns to Dela and asks what she saw at the end of chapter 17. She takes 2 beefcase-ass paragraphs to explain how she saw a vague future where Charles and her would get together and have Sherry. The vague fuzziness at the time stemmed from Charles's general disbelief and hesitance to follow through. The future is never set in stone, and even a reader's biased interpretation can haze the vision. The one that showed Sherry's existence shocked Dela because she didn't seek out such a future at the time and didn't think it was real. It was also odd because I had despised Charles so much before that day and would have never thought I would like him or love him like that. Not ever. I knew I wouldn't have put the thought of having a child with him into the reading. If anything, I would have wanted to see it differently if it were up to me. So says the girly pop who practically folded in minutes. Despised him, my booty cheeks. This still doesn't click for Mac, so Dela thoughtfully elaborates even further with, predictably, a lecture on free will and how it determines one's destiny, all through a card trip metaphor. I respect a good metaphor as much as the next gal, but this is the 3rd time Dela has had to explain her future sight mechanics in this chapter alone. Throw in the concepts of free will and destiny, it'd be what, at least the 5th or 6th time total in this book? I know it's been some years, but there's no need for this much repetition. Unlike Mac, we're not total idiots. I think. I hope. Anyway, while Mac continues to struggle comprehending said mechanics, he does manage to home in on the true $1 million question. How the hell this backstory is relevant to Sherry's condition? Huh. Wait, that's not dialogue. Sherry's still narrator here. Why does she refer to herself in the 3rd person? Dela looked happy that Mac had gotten himself to that conclusion. That's a great question, Mac. Oh no! I know Mac has proven himself lacking in the brain cell department, but girl, that is not a tough realization to make. I love that we have to specifically know of Dela's happiness here. The notion is meant to be genuine, but Mac's continual confusion can make that line sound patronizing. She may as well give him a cookie for being capable of asking the obvious. However, she hesitates whether this chicken nugget can handle the truth. But he was going to have to understand it all to save my life. Oh, okay, so Sherry hasn't forgotten how to use first person. Dela laments how Sherry hasn't revealed all this herself, to which Sherry italically excuses to us that she really wanted to, you guys. She wishes he didn't know all this so soon after they met, even though it has been months. Not like she's in the condition to say anything about it, ma'am. Jeez. But we finally learned the nature of Dela and Sherry's magical abilities. Oh boy, the remaining page count in this chapter worries me. Unfortunately, I don't think I can trim the fat this time. So, here we go! Dela and Sherry come from a long line of magical tarot readers, but that's just their side gig. The reading and the real magic are separate traits, but they can still complement each other. Unfortunately, Mac's already lost, so Dela has to hold his hand and simplify her language to a kindergartner level. The basic purpose of tarot reading: it helps guide an individual down a path toward life lessons needed to learn, grow, and correct past mistakes. Its origins date back before the biblical era as a form of ancient Judaism. Now, out of curiosity, I looked this up. The 5-second Google search basically said that while nothing's official, there are enough symbolisms and interpretations out there to give credence to creative liberties. So, alright, fine. Anyway, Dela's line traces back far beyond typical practicing witches to that of magical beings. Ones who do magic of all kinds, spells and things. The real kind, spelled with a K at the end, not what Charles usually does. Not mortal, but not immortal either, clearly. Oh, well, I'll be damned, that silly K is intentional. Yes, I know. It is an actual archaic term, but it ain't gonna stop me from goofing on it. I gotta keep the bit going, you know? Also, what exists between mortal and immortal? Killably ageless? Mac has evolved, or devolved, from confused to dumbstruck as the struggle to comprehend continues on. He tries to draw upon a grounded comparison. More media. Like the show Charmed Witches? Oh no, that show got pretty silly. But they got the power of 3 thing right. It's all more in line with that Sandra Bullock movie, Practical Magic. I'm almost sure Practicing Witch helped write that. Though, a real one might have worked on Charmed, too. Oh my god. The handbook pot dare calls the Charmed kettle pretty silly? Girl, I am gonna throw myself out of a window. Actually, you know what? No, never mind. It. I give up. If we're doing this, let's go back even further. As a fellow millennial curmudgeon also raised on the oldies, I want to see some Teen Witch or Witches of Eastwick next. Charles taps in to clarify that while regular magicians excel in deception, parlor tricks, and con artistry, Dela and Sherry do the real magic with a K. Does it count as clarifying when he repeats what Dela has just said? How is Max still stumbling over this? Doesn't he usually deal with more complex managerial stuff on the daily? My brainlet in Christ, how hard is it to yes and the rudimentary concept of witches are real? And you know, Charles, I seem to recall Sherry had adamantly stated that real magicians with respect for the craft never refer to their illusionary acts as tricks. That is an insult to the art. The wheel still turns in Mac's blown mind. As a casual Christian, he's uncomfortable at the prospect of them being devil worshippers. You know, the same sentiment as the rest of the center townsfolk who have always scorned them. But Dela's trying to speedrun his de-radicalization, and his single confused brain cell makes this difficult. She scoffs. Hardly. No. Just like everything beautiful, magic comes from God. Prayer is a form of magic. He gives us all the ability. Some are just afraid of it. Huh. So, are the one true ancient witches in this world all monotheistic? More in line with CRPG clerics? Or pagan cultists? Either way, I can't shake the sort of cultural exceptionalism found in American conservatism here. And just like the typical obnoxious American evangelical, Dela and Sherry are poor victims of ostracization for being among God's actual chosen. How much y'all want to bet these two would be Zionists? All in all, I've now become as lost as Mac. But it doesn't end there. Dela remains patient against Mac's continual skepticism. You don't think Jesus turning water into wine sounds like a magic trick? Or Moses' rod turning into a snake, or parting the Red Sea? What about the kings of old like David? They had priests that practiced magic and told the future. Once upon a time, people were fine with magic, but people get afraid of what they don't understand and start telling people that it's bad. People who wanted power but couldn't do magic wanted to stop those who could. This gift, like all others, comes from God. Dela looked at Mac, waiting for a response. She was satisfied that she had given him enough to begin to question what he had been taught growing up, or at least enough information to doubt what he had believed all along. Okay, so this is less a de-radicalization so much as a reconversion. Oof. But setting that aside, I can't shake how this late-game lore explanation is cobbled together. So the true form of magic has not been able to be explored to its fullest potential. The basis of Sherry's magic was never really built off her faith because, surprise, surprise, said faith was only mentioned twice, offhandedly in chapter 13, at the 60% mark, right after she caused that rude bicyclist to wipe out. This is a shift from what I inferred to be basic visualization conjuring. On top of that, we're now equating divine miracles to showtertainment parlor trickery and not exploring the possible blasphemy in that? And how the f does chaos magic fit into all this? What the hell? Then again, there's a dark sense of hilarity in Sherry utilizing her literal God-given gift to exact petty vengeance multiple times, like a true pseudo-religious American. USA! USA! Mac sort of gets it now. Charles taps back in to mention how Dela became his assistant and his illusions suddenly got better. Oh, okay, so Charles hasn't forgotten how to call his acts illusions. He never knew how his new and improved illusions work, and Dela shrugged it off as family secrets. Gee, that sounds mighty familiar for our fried-ass noogie. Ice-cold Dela fell so in love with Charles and didn't want to be adored only for her skills. Luckily, Charles didn't seem to mind living in blissful ignorance. But their, at maximum, 14-year honeymoon period came to an end when Sherry was born with an apparent affinity for magic. Dela knew she had to come clean to Charles at that point. Despite this troubling turn in the story, Dela still makes oogly eyes at Charles. Sherry then has to remind us, for the 4th time since they've arrived in their house, how madly in love her parents have always been with each other. Their eyes couldn't lie about how much they loved each other. Oh my god, we get it. Girlie's got a complex and needs her parents to get back together. Otherwise, what do these asides have to do with anything? Charles manages to ignore these cornballs and continue with his comprehension struggles. Why do I feel like I'm in some bad episode of Bewitched? Closed quotation typo. Are you both being serious right now? Yes! Serum can take her title drops back even farther. I feel your confusion nonetheless, buddy. Appropriate that Dela is a true magical servant of God, because she has a saint's patience. She assures Mac, again, that shit's real, and she's deadly serious here. He had to know that entire backstory to understand what he must do. Put Sherry in a bulletproof vest and shoot her? Be both serious and for f***ing real. The entirety of Chapter 17 could have been a brief Twitter thread. But that backstory somehow explains why Sherry's illusions were never explained to the crew, because they logically can't. Yeah, we know this. Why does Mac need thousands of words to grasp that? And he still doesn't get the relevance. Granted, I don't either. Dela finally gets to the point. As Sherry composed her creation illusion, she built Mac into it as a magical conductor to keep her stable. She just had to use volatile chaos magic, you guys. No other magic is cool enough. And in order to do that, she needed to utilize Mac without his knowledge and consent, like a true servant of the Lord, praise be. Presumably, when Sherry found out about Papa Charles, she also learned that Dela performed the same deception on him for years, so obviously it's all a-okay. In ye old times, she would need to hold his hand for the energy transference, but nowadays, witches have progressed to magical 5G, so Sherry can make it work from an established distance. This is why Mac needed to be on the automation board. When he left the building to cool off, Sherry lost her magical signal, thereby needing to shoulder the burden alone, making the magic rebound. After 26 pages, Mac finally understands that Sherry was on her deathbed because of him. Good job, bro. Okay. All right, challenge for you all out there. I want you to say, I was on my deathbed because of him, aloud, with 100% sincerity from your whole ass chest, and don't laugh. God, I love this stupid ass book. Good that the text emphasizes that this isn't Mac's fault. Yet, it is good, yes. Yet, Why didn't Sherry tell him? I mean, in chapter 13, we've seen his aversion and confusion toward magic, so it's really no mystery to us. But Dela kinda dodges the question by confirming my presumption. Sherry knew Dela used Charles and assumed Mr. Ultra Professional Mac would never leave her range. Add that to said aversion, why tell him when she knows how he'd most likely respond? So, because the conductor inadvertently severed the connection and caused the energy surge, he has to be the one to fix it. Dela has already wasted her time both expositing and explaining, so she can't sugarcoat the solution. Sherry must be placed on an altar out back, and Mac has to plunge a magical knot dagger into her heart at the witching hour. Okay, I guess they really did have the time to dump all that gobbledygook. Fine. Still didn't need that excessive page count though. Also, she seriously has an altar collecting moss in her backyard? Couldn't have put it in a less conspicuous space? I wonder if she has at least tried to disguise it as a table or something. For the nth time, this chapter, Max struggles to process this, and Dela has to assure him, once again, that she's not screwing with him. Listen, this isn't a real dagger. It just looks like one with healing properties. Just think of it as a magical EpiPen. What? What? Like an EpiPen? Jesus, this chapter's got me hootin' and hollering way too much. I'm gonna be waking up the neighbors at this rate. Dela says she needs the overload of energy to release before she can heal Sherry, so the EpiPen comparison doesn't even work. The intended process seems more in line with a thoracentesis, something Serum should be mildly familiar with because it has been shown on House MD a few times. Mac's loading wheel continues to turn. Just like the bulletproof vest, this is truly the only path for him. So he agrees, and Dela thanks him before leaving to make actual preparations. Now there are only two. Charles silently studies Mac, seeing through his confident and professional persona to reveal the terrified boy underneath. I mean, I could have told you that about 100 pages ago, my guy. Charles sees himself in Mac and the extent of his affection for Sherry. As a way to distract himself, Mac asks Charles why he left his family. Why this man could have possibly left the only woman he ever truly loved, or daughter he adored. Oh my god, Sherry, please stop glazing this loser. Unlike Dela, he doesn't need dozens of pages to explain himself, thank God. He was a very stupid, ignorant man. Period. End of sentence. No further explanation needed. Unfortunately, the excuses start to flow. Also, I'd like you to understand that I never left them. Dela left me and took Sherry away. Though, yes, it was because I did her wrong and deserved it, at least for the most part. No, this asshole! Oh, look at this schlub. I may have been stupid and ignorant, had wronged her and partially deserved it, but I never would have left. Yeah, toxic-ass male partners rarely do. He probably cheated on her or something. Charles didn't take the magic truth nearly as well as Mac. He thought Dela made him love her. And to test that, oh well, look at that, he cheated. Charles realized that if he was truly enchanted, the spell would have prevented him from doing that. Magic can apparently influence lust, but not love. The guilt kept him drugged, drunk, and depressed. Hey, there's that blackjack and hooker spiral I wanted. Dela forgave him, but the final straw snapped when Charles wanted to incorporate baby Sherry into the show. Dela had seen the part of him that she hated rear its ugly head again. She consulted her cards, but ultimately chose to take Sherry and run. The only wise decision made in this book. She left a letter saying she'd take him back if or when he decided to take the right path. She also cast a spell that made him unable to do so much as talk about Sherry or admit to a connection. I mean, it'd be so much easier to just keep him a depressed toxic scumbag and call it a day. But I guess he's still gotta be likable enough so Sherry's idolatry wouldn't seem completely delusional. Fine, I can run with this excuse on a basic level just so I can poke holes in it. Recall chapter 16 where Dela chides Charles for finally admitting the father-daughter relationship to someone. Like, since when was he able? Has his spell weakened with time? Charles was able to confess his relation at the hospital before Dela called. Did she dispel it before they arrived there? Or did she do it before Sherry joined the show and he was so accustomed to the spell that he never thought to test it again? What about Sherry? I can imagine she didn't want to be seen as the Nepo baby, but that still doesn't excuse her hiding this from us. At least this kind of answers the how was the father-daughter relationship kept secret for so long question that I lost my mind over back in chapter 15. Charles's pride was shattered, and he internalized his embarrassment and failure. He believes her spell was to push him away and soothe her broken heart. That's the gist of the story. He'll tell Mac the full one someday. I don't know. Spell logistics aside, I think he covered the important parts. This is the first time Charles has opened up to anyone about his past. Mac lightens the mood, joking that Charles should start writing that book meant to be that long version. He quips back that he'll send Mac the Cliff Notes instead, even though he just told Mac those Cliff Notes. Charles has attained a sense of peace now that the weight of his past has been lifted. He takes a deep breath, feeling lighter than he has felt in a long time. End of chapter. Man, what in the shit did I just read? Oh my god. This was so damn wackadoo, I had to reflect that through the drastically different art style. The insanity also made the chapter feel so long. I understand chapter 15's length, it covered 2 decently sized scenes. But here, I could only gloss over parts where Sarum wasted some paragraphs to expound on repetitive information that only needed 1 or 2 sentences. This script is almost as long as chapter 15's because 90% of this chapter was pure nonsense I genuinely couldn't ignore. This was about 20 straight pages of Dela's superfluous expositions, Sherry's insistent glazing, and Mac's perpetual confusion. And yes, those adjectives are necessary. Seriously, why did Sarum have to zap Mac with the brainlet ray gun? She didn't have to nerf his mental acuity to get all that gobbledygook across. Sure, Mac's gotta give Sherry a magical thoracentesis, but I'm still reeling at magic being a gift from the big G-man himself. I really didn't expect that turn in my wacky author insert magical empowerment urban life fantasy. And to have the silly TV and movie comparisons precede that, man, if anything, it is like comedic whiplash. My neck is almost broken. Oh, and the way we just brushed aside how Sherry used Mac's body to facilitate her magic without his knowledge and consent. She learned her mom did it to Charles as well and just thought, yeah, that's fine, lol. Excellent. Sherry's propensity for villainy has never ceased to amaze me. It's such a shame that it's unintentional. I'll be bummed if the breach of consent is never addressed again though, especially since we've seen Mac racked with guilt when it wasn't his fault. Did Sherry not comprehend the absence of her conductor? Which, now that I think about it, she said she began to feel ill mid-act for some reason. She acted as though she had always intended to fly solo. But this was another piece of information she kept from us! Even then, could she not adjust and pull from whomever was at the board? Or did she think that was the normal magical weight with a conductor? Yeah, she may have baked the connection in or whatever, but all professionals have contingency plans. Amateur shit, girl. As the toxic MMORPG adage states, healers adjust. Past me from chapter 15 wished that this was the last big boy, but Sarah managed to bamboozle me. I won't be fooled again though. I've skimmed ahead and chapter 19 is the true final long boy to look forward to. Gotta keep gripping those undies for our climactic medical procedure. Yay!